I think we're going to go ahead and jump into what this episode's main topic is, which is has been for the last couple of weeks, which is Loki. Loki on Disney Plus, the Marvel streaming show about our favorite god of mischief and how he's dealing with being severely outclassed and outpowered and kind of under the thumb of a really kind of possibly horrible bureaucratic despotic organization, something like that. Possibly, probably killing trillions of people every day. I'm just saying. It's just probably
Possibly,
what's happening.
probably.
But we're titling, we're calling this segment and this episode of the Supercast "Living La Vida Loki," and it is extremely relevant to this whole episode because it's not about nothing but Loki. Not one Loki, but two Lokis. But don't call her that. Don't call her Loki. Call her Sylvie. So let's jump into this, Lottie. We both had a chance to check out the episode, and so let me hear before I run my mouth about it, because you know how I do. What did you think about episode 3 of Loki?
I I utterly enjoyed this episode. I did. Um, I liked how it starts off immediately right after how the first one ended, where he's running there. He runs into the portal. She ends up back in the TVA, and now she's trying to get to, I guess, the Guardians, and of course Loki interferes, and we all know how that went. Then they ended up going into another portal because the chick that's considered herself the judge was about to kill both of them. Now they're on a planet that's about to end, and it gave them enough time to get to know each other. Loki. We pretty much the us audience. We pretty much know Loki. The whole point is that we're trying to get to know this woman, and we she peels back the layers a little bit of who she is. You know, you could see that her and Loki are definitely not the same person because, of course, Loki does like being the life of the party, as we saw in that one scene where he got drunk and started having fun, which blew their cover, by the way. And it's it was a really good episode. And one of the things I loved about the episode more is that she answered some questions that I know me and you had immediately. Of Do you want me to just go ahead and just
Well,
mention it?
not spoilers yet,
Yeah,
but
okay.
just
But it was a good little thing of like recapping it. I enjoyed the episode, enjoyed watching it, showing peeling back a little bit of the layers of who she is, figuring out what she calls herself now instead of calling herself Loki. And can I give a theory on that? Like,
about why she calls herself something other than
yeah,
Loki.
yeah.
Sure. I mean, I don't mind.
Remember how you talked about how Loki can literally change his gender? I believe this is like Marvel's way of like what's the word I'm trying to use, of adding like a little bit of LGBT
Well, yeah. There is that. Well,
yeah.
I would call to, but I would call to your attention though the fact that Sylvie apparently was and maybe was a little girl. So there's
Oh yeah,
so
but still
there's
he could have changed that as a little girl too, because remember she gained her powers a little bit quicker than he did. She gained it on her own.
well she gained well she
Well,
gained
it was enchantment,
she
yeah.
learned that on her own, but that's so she said. But because we got to remember that it's Loki, so everything could be a lie.
Yeah, everything could be
Everything
a
and
lie.
anything could be a lie. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
So
there's
it
no. You're saying, were they kind of like smuggling in? I mean, possibly, but there. What better character than Loki? If again, I've said in previous episodes, Loki literally in the legends that these are all based on was pretty, was all over the place too. Someone was mentioning, I think I forget, I was listening to like the Weekly Planet or something. They're like, yeah, well, in the legends he gives birth to this giant sea monster or some shit like that. I'm like, or snake, and I'm like, well, see, how can a dude give birth? So, but again, he's a fucking god. So
Yeah.
trying to bring gods down to the level of humans is all sorts of wrong. So he said it before. I'm a god. So I'm not a man. I'm a god, and I'm like, that makes sense. Now, to that end, could he could he have done that when he was younger? Any of the if the, and there someone actually mentioned, like, well, maybe the reason why he didn't suspect that she may not be a female version of himself is because when he has changed genders before, that's what he looked like. So maybe that's a face he's had before. So the thing is, in the comics, he's been many things. So
Hmm.
trying to pin down Loki is stupid. I'm just gonna say it straight up. No matter how woke or unwoke or whatever the fuck it is anyone thinks about Marvel and what they're doing right now in their movies and comics or whatever, this is historical. Loki has never been pinned down for any of that shit. The
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
the fact
Loki.
the fact that he happens to present as male at any given time is probably a result of the writers, their particular outlook on the world. But in reality, Loki could be fucking anything, and he
Yeah.
has been anything before. So yeah, anyone if one that wants to blow up Marvel's Twitter about that, maybe save your time for something else. I'm just say maybe save your energy for something else because you're just not going to be correct about it. So. Um, but anyway, sounds like you had a good time with the episode.
Hmm.
So, and your as far as the way I looked at it, it's it was good. I'm just gonna say this. There's some people that are like, oh, this episode let me down, and I was like, this episode met my expectations, which have been tempered by the fact that I have not been jumping up and down excited about this show so far. I've enjoyed it. I've had good fun with it. I've not wanted to not watch it, but I'm not
Hmm.
like super excited about it. And this episode pretty much was in line with the other ones. I think that you could look at it and say, well, this episode was treading water because it didn't really advance the story. But let's be honest, it didn't really
No.
advance the
Well,
story
yeah,
because the
this was
story,
a
yeah, the story as last we saw it was we're tracking down this other Loki and we found him. All right, that advanced the story. The whole story seems to be the point of Loki, at least as far as narratively so far, is 2012 Loki is trying to get out from under the thumb of the TVA, so he's playing along with them to try to catch one of himself and looking for an opportunity to escape. Well, he fucking did that. I mean, he literally have
hmm
done that. If that was the point of the whole show, and which I know it's not, but that was the presented the point, then what else is there to be done now? And so you have a whole episode where presumably they're on the run from the TVA and they're trying to find some place safe to be, etc. And they just kind of get stuck on this one planet, and the rest of it is exposition and character development, which is not bad, but in a series that has 6 episodes and you spend the third episode basically explaining who this Sylvie is, and having her and Loki kind of reluctantly teaming up and everything. I mean, if that's the whole point of the episode, I get it. But also, I kind of wonder, like, how are you spending your time? How do you spend the next 3 episodes bringing this to a conclusion, a satisfying conclusion that lives up to what Marvel has been doing up to this point? And so
when you say it like that, I, I also do forget this is only a 6 episode show.
yes,
So when you say it like that, it does begs the question. Because, like you said, let's be honest, nothing really happened in this episode. I mean,
It was
good little.
fun. I mean, it
Well,
was fun. It was a
it was
fun
it was
little
a fun
jaunt.
episode to watch. Yeah, it was a fun episode. There were a few things here and there that happened that eventually we're going to mention. But honestly, it's one of those episodes that if you like, if this was not being streamed and it was like we had to watch it, let's say this was like back in the early 2000s where you couldn't record anything. You couldn't record what is that thing with DVR
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and you missed this episode, you'll be just fine. You'll be just
Yeah, I
fine.
mean, at the most, she'll just be like, at the start of the next episode, you're like, why are they in danger? I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, but you just watch just watch the previously on. Yeah, watch the
Yeah,
previously
the
on.
little
You'll be fine.
recap will literally give you everything you need.
And I hate to say that about any show where there's an episode that's not vital, because that's unfortunate. Now, but I don't know if I'll totally agree with you about that, because in a sense we need to understand why Sylvie was the greatest threat to the TVA at this moment, and that she says she has a plan. Well, what the hell is that plan? How does Loki figure into it? Does he figure it? Is he just kind of hanging on for dear life during this? And we also got to see, I think one thing that was important in this episode was seeing that Loki isn't totally lame. Because
He actually can fight.
yeah, not just that, but that he calls himself the better Loki, and in some ways he is better than she is, and in some ways she's better than he is, but she can't just like manhandle him. Like it seems like she, the way she handled all of the TVA groups, that somehow she was better than him, like all the way around, but it's clearly not true. And it leads me to believe that in that first episode, when he gets captured by the TVA, that is in fact a result of his ignorance and not the fact that he actually is not capable.
Yeah.
So, it's like I said, overall interesting. I liked the setting. I liked I like a lot of the things that happen in the episode. The very ending, that ending sequence was pretty phenomenal. I could tell they spent the big Marvel bucks on that sequence. So, good usage of it. I just wish the rest of the episode was felt as vital as that, 2 or 3 minute sequence. But I enjoyed it. I had fun with it though. So, that's our spoiler free thoughts on Loki episode 3. So what did you guys think about this episode, and what did you think about our commentary? Why don't you get down into the comments, let us know what you're thinking, and of course you can reach us at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter, or supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com. Hit us up, we can chop it up, talk about Loki, and get ready for that next episode.